Hello, welcome to the Woke Wild Women podcast. I am Bethany Evans.
I am Roxanne Sailors.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Today we are going to talk about tarot, and this is very personal and dear to both Roxanne and I, and it is one of the things that we connected with first. So like we've talked about, we joined this ontological life coaching program. We didn't know each other, but yet we had heard through the grapevine, because I think it was my coach knew you and had been your coach.
Yep.
And she mentioned, I think, to both of us, oh, there's this woman in the program, because you joined late, I think, Roxanne, right? You joined
I did. Yeah. A
month
month
two.
late.
Yeah, so she joined in month two, and it's a year-long program. And so we knew about each other, and she's like, oh yeah, she does tarot too, you guys should talk. So we're like, oh cool. And for me, I was pretty new to tarot at the time when the program started. I think I had maybe been watching like YouTube videos for like 6 months or longer, maybe possibly close to a year, but I can't remember exactly. So yeah, it's very personal to us, and we use it every day for ourselves and for other people sometimes, Roxanne, but for me personally, it is a very integral part of my business that I offer to other people. So yeah, we're going to have a discussion about all things tarot today.
Yay.
Yay! So do you want to start with your journey and
Sure.
how you came across tarot, how long you've been doing it?
So I think it was, I gotta say, about 20 years ago or so, maybe a little bit longer, when I first kind of started expanding my spiritual exploration beyond the way I was raised, and really started diving into nature-based spirituality, all different kinds. Um, and I had been um, studying with my best friend at the time, and we were studying palmistry and meditation and some Native American spiritualities, definitely getting into more moon cycle observations. And for my birthday, she gave me my first tarot deck, which was the Celtic Tarot. Um, and so I started just by reading the book and looking at the pictures, which I found beautiful, and they spoke so much to me because I do have a very deep roots in Celtic mythology, and my family comes from the British Isles. I'm like 96% white bread, white. With a Irish twist in there.
Mm.
So yeah, so I really was connected with that deck for a long time, and that was the deck that I used for probably 10 years. And then fast forward, yeah, about 10 years ago, later, yeah, it's got to be like more like 25 years now. Anyway, I joined a meetup. There was a tarot meetup, and I can't remember if it was a tarot meetup or a pagan meetup, but it was definitely something in the realm of nature-based spirituality. And eventually I did get connected with the tarot meetup group, and we met once a week, I do believe, in a home. And the leader was a woman who actually had developed her own tarot deck.
Oh, cool.
And at the time, I think I maybe had 3 decks, but again, I was still really mainly using my one deck. And we got together every week, and we just would start discussions. So, maybe one week we were talking about different spreads, how to read different spreads, how to see how the interrelationship between the cards would play with each other in the spread. And then we really took time at the end of every gathering to do an intuitive reading. So we would pick a random card from any deck, because there's like tons of decks. Everybody brought theirs, and so we would just kind of play with them and share. And we would just pull a card, and we would just say, what do you see in this card? And and we would just pop out all the things that we saw, the meanings, and then how that would apply to whatever the question was.
Mm-hmm.
And through the course of that, I became friends with the woman who developed that deck, and I now use her deck primarily because it is a nature-based deck, and her name is Joanna Powell Colbert. Her deck is Gaian Tarot. I encourage all of you to go look it up. But so yeah, and I picked it up and put it down, put the tarot down, but I mostly picked it up and it became a daily part of my meditation practice or my morning practice to just help me tap into the messages that were available to me if I chose to look. And now it is, I mean, I don't even think about it. I take my deck with me everywhere, including when I go backpacking. I do have an app on my phone that I can use, but there's just something about touching the cards and you know, shuffling the deck and that kind of thing that really speaks to me. And I'm also in that place. I've been with this deck. This deck has been with me for many years, and starting to open up my heart to there might be another deck out there somewhere someday.
I have many you can borrow.
I know.
Or I can gift you.
Yeah. I'll just come to your house and we'll just play with your decks all weekend.
Oh my God, I know. I know when I come to visit you, I can't bring all of my decks. I wish that I could. So you're gonna have
to need an entire suitcase.
I know. So you would need to come here to do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Done. Anyway, that's basically how I came to tarot, and I have mostly studied through books. I have one book that I use as a resource all the time. It's called Everyday Tarot, and I wish I could remember the name of the author, but again, I have it on my phone, so I take it everywhere with me. Yeah. There are many books out there, and there's so many great YouTube videos. And Bethany knows this about me. I tend to get overstimulated if I have a bazillion options, and it's not that I'm closed off to other sources. I just find that you know, when I get into that intuitive space, I need to create like boundaries, parameters, and healthy boundaries. Yes. So I don't use a whole lot of resources all at once. Yeah. There's a difference between reading tarot intuitively and studying. Yeah. And when I'm in studying mode, absolutely, I'm like, give me all the resources. But when I'm actually reading intuitively, I stick with what I have allowed in. Yeah. And that comes and goes based on where I'm at in my life.
Nice. So. I love that description of, you know, talking about the difference, because you only have like a handful of decks, and we just counted mine before we got on here, and I have 40. So yeah, it's everyone does it differently, but I love the way that you explained how it's overwhelming to have so many options, because I think in life in general, for a lot of people, and I don't think we realize it, that when we have too many options, like it becomes super overwhelming.
Which is why I use tarot so often. It helps me to, you know, all this energy that's out here, it helps me to just kind of sift through it.
Exactly. That's exactly why I use tarot because I'm trained as an ontological coach. You know, I have a master's degree. I work one-on-one with people. I'm very good about coaching people about relationships and communication and all of that. But what I love about the tarot is that I can get many, many messages without anything, right? So it kind of like solidifies what's coming through for me. And it can be like, okay, well, yeah, so this is what I was feeling. So I was right about this, or I'm getting two different messages here. So then let's see like what cards come out to see like which is actually the energy that's present, you know? So you're able to hone in on exactly what it is that needs to be discussed, right? Because all the other stuff sometimes is just distraction, or that's not really the important issue, you know? It's like, this is what we need to talk about, you know? And so that's how I use it with my clients, which is really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you said you started studying tarot about 2 years ago, 2.5-ish?
Yeah, I'd say probably maybe closer to 3. So I studied for probably 6 to 8 months before I actually got a deck of my own. And the way that I studied was I just came across this person on YouTube, and at the time I was going through transition of, you know, wanting to leave my marriage, and I really found comfort in the messages that she was coming through with, like it was like she was telling my story, kind of, it was like she was tapping into the energy of whatever was happening for me. And so it provided me more insight into what was happening, because at the time I was kind of like, why am I thinking and feeling and doing, like, why am I acting this way? And I was really trying to understand myself better. And so she was really picking up on things, and I was just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, I don't know this woman, she lives in like North Carolina or something, and she's just on YouTube, and she's pulling cards, and I had never heard of tarot before. And I was like, this is so interesting. And I was just fascinated by it, and I just wanted to, just like you said, I was in study mode immediately. And I was like, I just want to take it in. Like, and so I started watching other YouTube readers, but she would have different decks. And that's how I learned about all the variety of what is out there, and how they're all different too. And they have all of their own energy. And that you can pick up different things with the different decks, So there is the Rider-Waite tarot, which is like considered the original that every other adaptation is based off of. I don't have one of those.
I do.
Do you? Oh, awesome. I've been just recently, I was like, I need to get one of those probably.
I randomly got it in one of my Lunarly box.
Oh, nice.
Like someday when we have advertisements, we'll have to get them to
I know.
pay for advertising for us.
Right?
But anyway, they it was included in one of my boxes. I'm like,
that's awesome.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
I know. That's really cool. So yeah, that was like 3-ish years ago. So after I finally, like, I think I had studied enough, and I was like, I want to do it myself. I really want to get cards and see if I can do it. And I was like, awakening to my feminine, which is very, we're connected to the divine. So it's kind of, psychic and intuitive. And I was waking up, and I did actually take a course on like, it was, awakening, I don't remember what it was called, but how to, like, basically learning about how to trust and hear your intuition, like, I never actually took any courses about studying the tarot. It was more about all I learned with other people. And so through that, I learned about numerology, and then of course the suits and what every card means and represents. And then what I loved about this person who I primarily learned from was that she was an intuitive reader. So she was all about, like, well, this is what this card means for me, but you could have a different meaning for it. And so it was like giving me permission to do that for me when I actually had my own cards. Was I don't, just because that came up for her doesn't mean that it has to mean that for me as well, and that's what also I love about each deck and how it's different, is that each card can have a kind of slightly different meaning based on the imagery, the colors, the feeling, all of that. So, and it just, like, it makes me feel like it's super magical, and like it taps into my like childlike wonder. And like when you were talking about the shuffling, like that's my absolute favorite part. Like I just sit sometimes and shuffle my cards, and it like calms me down. Like it's really strange. It's just like one of those automatic things now, because I've been doing it for so long, that it's yeah, I don't know. It, like I said, it really grounds me.
It's part of the ritual for me.
Yeah.
Like, even if I know that my cards are totally shuffled, I will still shuffle them.
Oh yeah, me too.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah. Exactly. And so the first deck I got is also a nature-based one. It's called The Wild Unknown. And it's all animals. Actually, I'm looking at it right here, so I'm just gonna grab it real quick. But I love it because it's all it's got a bunch of animals and nature and trees, and so, and I was going to show you. So it's got like deers and snakes and spiders and rats, and anyways, so all kinds of nature stuff. And
and it's interesting to note that that's like black and white, like line drawings.
Yes, yeah, that's
real
me too. Like, yeah, so
real simple, but
right. And she only uses simple colors, too. It's not like, and I believe it's a woman who made it. Yeah, you're right. It's like, that's what I've always been fascinated by, other people's creative not just their process, but what they produce, right? Especially art. That's always been
Yeah.
fascinating to me because for whatever reason, I tell myself I'm not artistically, you know,
Even
able.
though that thing on the wall, I believe you painted that.
I did, yes. But then I tell myself, oh, but I had a model, so it doesn't count. Anyways, that's a whole other story. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, I think that is, I think, so that it was, that's, it's really, it helped tap me into my feminine energy, which is the creation, whether, however it showed up. So, um, yeah. So yeah, I picked up this deck and then I started doing just readings for myself, you know, to try just get used to it. I started recording myself doing it, you know, trying to get used to speaking out loud.
Yeah.
Because I knew I wanted to do what she was doing. Like for whatever reason, I was like, I want to do that, you know? Um, and, and then eventually I just started my Instagram and that was, you know, I posted my first post with cards and just came through. And slowly over the years, I've just been getting deeper into the channeling of information, trusting what just comes through, whatever it is that comes through when I sit down and I'm like, it's just about my focused intention. So all I have to do is say, okay, what message wants to come through right now? And I like to pair tarot, like one or two tarot cards with like an oracle card and then read the messages together.
Yeah.
And that's how I post on my Instagram. And then so I just allow the cards to come out how they come out. And so the way that I shuffle, I don't know how you shuffle, but like what I do is I kind of just let the cards fall out. So like I'll shuffle like this and then, you know, like one will either kind of pop out and stick out and I'll be like, okay, that one wants to come out, or one will just fall straight out of the deck or like flip and like this one wants to come out. And it is the Three of Cups. And it's three women. How
Yay.
perfect.
I love it. Yeah.
Celebration. So the Three of Cups is celebration and coming together. Um, what does the Three of Cups represent for you?
Yes. Playful, joyful, community.
Yeah.
Um, I think my version of Three of Cups in my deck is it's three of water,
Yeah.
and it's otters playing
Oh, I love
in the
that.
water. So that, I mean, that to me just says it all. Like
Yeah.
if you've ever watched otters or sea lions playing in the water, yeah, just that exuberant, joyful interaction with
Yes.
each other and
Right.
creating play together. So
Exactly. It's all about that. Yeah. You're coming together with other people. And cups represent emotions. The water represents emotions. So it's all about, you know, having fun and joy. And it can even represent, like, I think in the traditional tarot, it represents like traditional celebrations like weddings or gatherings, you know, things like that. That's like large groups of people. But yeah, how cool that one came out.
mhm. So tell us all a little bit about the difference between traditional tarot
Hmm.
and oracle decks, because I know you have many of different kinds, and you were
I do.
just mentioning that how you use them together.
Yeah.
So
So I have 9 different tarot, and some of them, so like they're all adaptations of the Rider Waite, like I had mentioned.
right.
So like this one that I pulled is called Crystal Visions. This is my newest one, the one that I'm obsessed with right now. And so they're all adaptations of the tarot. And so some of the ones I have actually have extra cards in them, but generally the tarot, when you're talking about the tarot, it's all the same cards, but just different, like, you know, every artist does their own rendition of it. So like each
Right.
card generally has an underlying meaning.
Mhm.
Um, but the imagery may be a little bit different. The theme of the deck may be a little bit different. Sometimes they add in new cards, you know, just for, I don't know, an extra whatever. Like this deck, this Crystal Visions has an unknown card, and that's like one extra card it has, and it just has like extra messages, you know. So that's tarot, and then it's adapted from a deck of cards, which a deck of cards has suits, and 4 suits, and it has court cards, and then it has an ace through 10. So that's it is also, you know, if you're familiar with playing cards, it is adapted from that as well. And
Right.
we'll get into, you know, possibly what each. I was gonna talk about, since we're talking about nature-based spirituality, like how the tarot is represented, or how nature is represented in the tarot with the suits.
Yeah.
We'll go into that, especially because I think your deck does it really,
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's the tarot. Oracle decks, they're kind of just their own thing. Like each deck is unique and its own, and they all have a different theme. So for example, I'll get my, well, I'll just use this one. This one is called Sacred Rebels by Alana Fairchild.
Sacred Rebels.
Yeah. And so they do have numbers on them too. So numerology does play into it, but it's generally like they're numbered 1 through, I think it's like 44 is usually how many Oracle decks have.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
At least I've noticed that 44 is like a number that I've seen a lot in Oracle decks. I don't really know, like, how do you define Oracle? Like, I don't even know if I've had my own definition of it.
Well, an oracle usually is conduit for divine wisdom.
Okay.
I could look it up if I could get my phone, but it's too far away.
Are we in AC right now with our dictionary?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, quick tangent.
Yes.
Because I am obsessed with a particular podcast right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they were interviewing somebody who is a Scientologist, but part of Scientology is you clear words. And when they're talking about clearing, I'm like,
Oh no.
I know that word.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah, when they don't know a word, they like when they're reading their texts, they're not sacred text, but basically they're sacred texts. If they
Yeah.
don't understand a word, they will go to the dictionary to find out the many different uses of the word, the origins of the word. Like they really dive into, they truly understand that word, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, to get back to oracles,
Yeah.
um, you know,
For that side note, anyone who is close to us will understand.
yes. Oh, anyway, when I think of Oracle, I especially think of The Matrix, which was a movie that had a huge effect on me and my understanding of reality, and that reality is really all subjective. But there was the Oracle there, and people would go to the Oracle when they were seeking some deep wisdom. They didn't know where to turn next. They would go to the Oracle, and the Oracle would give them some convoluted, weird story, like "Don't eat the cookie" or whatever that was.
And then you have to decipher what it means.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, how appropriate. That's our Oracle deck. You go to it, it gives you some sort of piece of wisdom, and then it's up to you to figure out how that applies to the question or to your situation.
Beautifully stated. Yes. So like I just picked up a card right now from the Sacred Rebels, and it's a number 42, and it says the word wants to be written. And it's a beautiful image of a
All
woman
about words.
Right? Yeah. Oh my God, how funny. And I literally just picked up like half the deck. And so
Yeah.
then it comes with oracles. I mean, every deck comes with a booklet generally with messages, but the oracles are always a lot thicker.
Yeah.
And so then you go to the number 42, and then there's a longer message. So like with this deck, it's very deep. It's very in depth, which I love. But it's not something you may not do it every day, but so it's like 2 pages and then another page of the message, and then there's a healing process at the end for this deck, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So then there's like more simple ones, like this one I have is called Angel Answers, and it's really simple messages. Like it has a yes and no card in here, just words like abundance, or there's like timing cards, like this one says a year from now, and it's like if you're asking a question, and because we're those nosy people who are like, when is this going to happen, and like, is this
does
really
my boyfriend love me?
Yeah. Am I
Yes
going to get
no?
married? Yeah. Am I going to get married? Is this guy the one? No. So, sorry.
Ask again. Magic 8-ball says.
Yeah, it's like the 8-ball. So, sometimes if you're really like, I need an answer now, I'll go to this one. And it has shorter messages in it. It's like super short. Success. Like,
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Congratulations, you're on the road to success. So it's really dependent on the oracle and, like I said, the artist and the creator. And so that's what's really cool. I just absolutely love finding new and different ones. Like, I don't think I have many similar themed ones. I try to do like a bunch of different ones and like ones that I've never seen before because I just think it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be a challenge trying to find the right deck. Knowing the bookstores or metaphysical shops in your area
Yeah.
is really helpful. There are a couple of places in my area that I would go to find a deck, because you can look at them online, but it's different when you're holding them. And I think,
Yeah.
and this is my own belief, but I believe, well, it's also physics. Everything is energy.
Yes.
Everything is energy. And if you can tap into the energy of something, and you can do that long distance, it's just a lot easier when you're just
Yeah.
holding the deck.
Yeah.
And just being able to see the artistry, and find one that speaks to you.
Yeah, that's how I learned about so many of the decks because I watched other people on YouTube reading them, and they would use ones that I didn't feel called to buy, but the ones that I knew that were calling to me, like, okay, I need to get that one, you know. And there's always a time too, so it's like this Crystal Visions one has been in my Amazon cart for like ever, and it wasn't just until last week that I was like, okay, it's time to get that deck,
Right.
especially because I now I use one tarot deck like the majority of the time with clients, just one that, and before I was using the Spellcaster's Tarot, but for whatever reason, I just stopped resonating with it. It just kind of felt, the energy just wasn't there anymore. And I
Yeah.
needed a new one. And it's pretty on point with where I'm at in my life anyway, and like the new phase I'm at with my business. So, yeah, you will be drawn to certain decks, whether it's from far away or going and actually seeing and feeling and looking at the images, and definitely being able to look at all of the cards. That is helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I was just playing with my Oracle deck. Just want to share.
Yeah.
I pulled number 19. It's the card of friendship.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny that I pulled that one card with the three women on it too. Oh no, there's
Yeah,
more. Just kidding.
there's
That's so
5,
cool. There's
but
5.
yeah.
I love
But
it. I love it.
yeah, so I mean, it's a great way, depending on the deck. I love using the Oracle just as in the morning. I usually pick my Oracle card first before I meditate, of like, what do I need to bring my attention towards
Yeah.
today? And the thing I love about my um, Sacred Woman deck, I think that's what it is.
You can
I can
never
never
remember
remember
the
the
name.
name. I'm like, it has the name woman in it, So
And
anyway, I
we
think
were together when you bought it, so I was like, it's called this, but now I don't remember it all.
yeah,
So
I think it's Sacred Woman or Sacred Women.
yeah.
And there's so much that I love about this deck, but it's all really very, very self-centric,
Yeah.
not self-centered, but I mean, it's based on what you need to bring into your life,
Mm.
which, we can get a little bit more into the, what do we call it, debunking the tarot myths
Yes.
about like how tarot it does and doesn't work, or all that. But I love my Oracle because it really helps me to focus in on what I want to focus on. And
Yeah.
it's perfect because, yes, this is my time where I'm focusing on friendship.
Yeah.
My
Awesome.
friend Bethany.
Yay.
And all of you out there who
Yes.
hopefully
Our
are
new
are
friend.
getting a lot from this.
Yeah, we're thoroughly enjoying ourselves. We hope that you are too.
Yes.
Yeah. Any
So
excuse to talk tarot, I swear.
what's that?
I said any excuse to talk tarot.
I know. Yeah. So do you want to introduce some tarot decks, or do you want to talk about some tarot myths?
Yeah, let's talk some tarot myths and then also simultaneously talk about like how it's connected to nature.
Okay.
Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe it's like debunking the myths by then saying what it actually is.
Well, I will start off with one of the first things that people that I hear people say, or that I get from media or whatever current culture, is that tarot has some inherently um, evil, scary, or power in
Yeah.
general
Right.
over our own authority.
Yeah.
That if you're using tarot, then the tarot is like subconsciously telling you what to do or
Right.
whatever.
Manipulating you through the dark forces.
Yes, yes. Well, and one of my favorite lines in yet another very influential movie, Practical Magic, is there is no devil in the craft. There is no sense of devilry or evil in nature-based spirituality. There's just the natural yin and yang, light and dark, and all areas in between. And you need to have the dark to be able to appreciate the light. So,
exactly. And to balance it out.
yeah, exactly. And symbols only have power if you believe in them. That's another quote from the same movie.
Exactly.
I think I can quote the whole movie. But yeah, symbols only have power if you believe in them. And
Exactly.
I believe that I can draw inspiration and intuition from anything.
Yeah.
And I can also, and something that I learned in my meetup from Joanna Paul Colbert, who is the artist on my tarot deck, you can also, especially as you're working with your tarot, if you get a card that you either are not ready to receive or that you think is totally out of line with what you're up to, you can actually energetically and physically say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I've gotten the lightning card. It's funny. I got the lightning card a lot when I was, what's that?
Is that the tower?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I was going through my divorce and I would frequently just be like, no, thank you, because I couldn't conceive of that. And then when the time finally came that I had to actually conceive of that, it stopped coming to me.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it was just saying, hey, this is coming, whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah.
But,
Go ahead.
I was going to say on a day-to-day level, as you get these cards, I'm learning more and more that I don't need to say no, thank you. But I think, there are certain areas, reversals, what a card means when it's reversed versus when it's upright. There are times when I've gotten a card that's reversed and I'm like, I need to turn it right side up. That's just, I get this strong sense. So in that sense, I'm saying no, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Other myth.
We didn't talk about that, but that is one thing is like, so upright cards have different meanings than reverse cards. So like say you pull a card out and it comes up upside down. That's what we're talking about when it's reversed. And generally for me, it kind of means like the opposite, of like the card meaning or, something where it hasn't happened yet or something like that. But I don't generally read reversals unless I actually feel like, okay, this needs to be reversed. Like you said, like, okay, it doesn't need to be reversed. I'm going to turn it back. And I love what you said about us being in control and the power, and it's all also subjective, like you had mentioned earlier, in that, okay, if a card comes out and you're getting this like overwhelming energy of fear or something, dive into that. That's what it's trying to point you to. You have a fear of this happening and you not being okay if this happens or something like that. And it's really just pointing to the fact, like, just clear that fear out. Or, it's not a warning. It doesn't have to be like a warning, something terrible is going to happen unless you actually believe that. You know what I'm saying? And also maybe shit does happen and it fucking sucks. Like you're still going to be okay, And I think that's where people get like so worried about I don't like, I've had so many people say to me, like when I'm like, oh, you want me to do a reading for you? And they're like, well, I don't know what's going to come out, and I'm like, okay, well, let's look at that. Why are you afraid of that? What are you afraid of that I'm going to find out about you or that's going to come out? Like we are like so afraid of people knowing the real us, which is like, and it's really the shadow and the darkness that we feel like we have to hide. And we're taught to like suppress it and fear it. And it's not good. And it's largely associated with feminine energy because we're the ones who are the moon, the darkness. We connect to that negative energy. And when I'm talking negative, I mean like negative and positive when it comes to science.
Polarity.
Like polarity, not like, you know what I'm saying? Not like we're mean and evil and whatever. Toxic. I mean, anyways, okay. So you know, it's largely associated with women, because of that, because we are so easily connected to the divine and nature. And we are literally a portal from like another dimension to the physical world. Like that's how we birth babies, right?
Yes.
A soul
Yes.
enters and we grow it and we birth it out. We're like a
We
portal.
do.
So I don't remember the point I was making, but just that it's all subjective and you can believe what you want to believe, you know. And for me personally, I try to create a positive or empowering spin on things. So even if it's like a shitty message or like it's a thing we're talking about that's shitty, you know, and it's uncomfortable and you don't want to talk about it, you still can find a way to look at it that makes you feel empowered by, okay, I can choose how I handle this situation, even though it sucks. Like, and yes, I can get through it. And this is what I need to get through it. This is what I need to do for myself to get through it. And that's where I come from when I'm doing readings with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other myths. One frequent one that I get is that tarot cards will tell you your future.
Ah, yes.
And
Pardon me while I close my window.
okay. And Bethany leaves the scene and she will return. But
The dogs were making an appearance and
excellent.
yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Now they're not. Okay. So yes,
Uh,
I hear that a lot too.
yeah. And my response to that is it provides you a scenario. I believe in infinite futures,
Yeah.
and we are living in the present moment at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain likes to jump forward and backwards, and the magic is happening right here and now. So if you get a card, I'll just, oh, no, let's see. I'm trying to look for a good kind of spooky-ish card that might feel like, oh, here we go. So 5 of Fire.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, fire breathing.
Yeah.
And that might be scary. And if that were to come up, it indicates that there's going to be some sort of conflict. There is a power struggle.
Yeah.
And somebody might be thinking that, oh, it's inevitable. My boss is going to fire me, or I'm going to have, you know, my kids are going to like have a big blowout. And it really is just planting a seed for a possibility. And there's a number of different ways you can look at it. You can look at it as that is a potential direction that your question is going to lead to.
Yeah.
And if that resonates with you, especially if you have a real fear for it,
Yeah.
now we're providing you an opportunity to take a look at that situation and be empowered in that situation.
Yes.
Rather than having it blindside you, or you know, you can always say no thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no way to really truly divine the future, because we
Mm-hmm.
do have personal choice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then I think I had this conversation with somebody who had asked me something about that, about you know, I don't remember exactly the context of the conversation, but it was about like telling the future. So if you pull a card and it says this, does that mean that's going to happen? And I said, well, it could, but what if I provide you new information in this moment and then you choose something different because of what came out during our conversation? Then you just changed what's going to happen in your future. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
like it's all dependent upon you and how you empower the energy that's present. That's really what it is. That's what I try to say is like we're like you said, we're in the present moment. We're not talking about, we may talk about past because things that led up to this point. We may talk about future because it's like, okay, what do you want to do? But right now we're talking about, this is the energy that's present. The cards give us the ability to hone in on exactly what's present, right, without being confused. So we remove the confusion, and then you, based on your understanding of like, okay, this is what's here. Now you can see, like, that's where you take your power back, right? And this again is going back to the present moment. Like
Yeah.
and you make those changes in the now, and then from that place, like, you can change your future in the course, you know, based on what you decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Any other myths or things you'd like to address?
Yeah, so this is something that I've gotten feedback on, and I get that it's probably something that's within me that I'm trying to clear is, that people aren't going to take you seriously if you're a tarot card reader. You know, that's something that I've been working with someone who's kind of been coaching me on things. And it's like, he's wanting me to come from a place of not leading with that. Because he's like, well, you know, you want to, oh, also you want to appeal to everybody. Right. So automatically if I,
You know,
do exact, that was, do I, but I don't want to appeal to everybody. That's a whole other conversation, but it was more like, oh, you're going to alienate and you're going to lose half your audience. Or like, what about the people who are religious, you know, like, and I'm like, well, then maybe I don't want to work with those people. If they don't resonate with what I do and what I believe, why would I want to work with those people? But you know, so, but I think the biggest one was not being taken seriously. So it's like, um, and I've noticed this in some like kind of older movies, but in like now, like people who have said these things to me, like I was dating this guy and legit, he was like, you know, he came from a very kind of suppressed religious background. So I get that's where it was coming from, but like his grandfather what didn't, and his grandfather asked him the question, well, so what if you guys are like, you know, it works out long term, are you going to have like a tarot card psychic sign in your front, in front of your house, like, you know what I'm saying, like those cheesy neon signs that, and I'm sorry I just say cheesy because I do believe that people do legit work with the tarot card and the psychic, you know, they have those places, but it gets seen as cheesy, right, as like this I'm going to tell your future, and you know, all I'm really trying to do is just get your money, and I'm going to manipulate you into thinking something's going to happen, or I'm going to tell you, you know, and just like we just debunked that myth about like it's not about the future, it's about what's happening now. But what was my point? I get off on a tangent and then I forget my point. Oh yeah, not being taken seriously. And I was just watching The Wizard of Oz, and I get this is a really old movie, but in the scene in the beginning when she goes to see who is the Oz later,
yeah,
he's in his like traveling you know, thing, because I think
caravan.
he's with the circus or whatever, and in it shows that he's like pretending to you know, tell her future in a crystal ball by like telling her to close her eyes and then looking in her bag to see, you know, and so it's like that myth of like, oh well, tell me all this information about you, and then based on what you tell me, I'm gonna find, you know, your weaknesses or whatever, and play into those so that I just tell you what you want to hear, basically. And so it's like we don't get taken seriously because we think it's being manipulative. Yeah, that was one of the biggest ones too, and I've seen it in other movies too, where I just notice, or it's like just in general, the like I was watching Friends. You know how like Phoebe is, you know, she's like the yoga, she does yoga, and she's like, you know, the crystals and the, oh, I'm gonna cleanse your aura and things like that. Like people who are considered woo woo, I even fucking hate it, but I use it because people use
Oh
that.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Like,
My in-laws call me a woo-woo hippie or a
right,
woo-woo hippie witch. And
right.
I'm like,
Well,
okay.
okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, maybe I am those things, but what's wrong with that? Like, why do you even have to
Yeah.
label it, right? Like, what is wrong with being a hippie? What is wrong with being a witch? Like, you know, and even that is like historically, witches were burned at the stake, and why? And I get like that there are some people who take the ability to use nature-based magic and spirituality in the darker way, you know, to manipulate. I get that there are people who do that,
And
but
people do that on all in all religions and in
exactly.
all
Yeah,
areas.
everywhere. Exactly. And so, but I think that it's just not super mainstream now for, and maybe it is becoming it. For me, it is because I immerse myself in that community, and you do too. But
Yeah.
the pagan or the witchy or, you know, whatever, hippie, I don't even know. There's so many
Metaphysical.
metaphysical, like that metaphysical,
Yeah.
it's not taken seriously. It really
Yeah.
is not. And it's because it cannot be proven, right? You cannot prove it unless you've actually experienced it. And I think that's where the fear comes from, is that like someone who hasn't actually experienced a reading and actually gotten results from it where you're like, wow, you couldn't have made that up, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, like something like that, if you haven't experienced it, that's where the fear or the doubt or the I'm not going to take you seriously comes from. And it's very frustrating for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not an idiot, you know? And it's like, I do it. Like, why do I have to prove that I have credentials? Like, yes, I do have a master's degree. And yes, I did train, you know, in a structured ontological life coaching program. So I do have structured training, but with
Yeah.
this, I don't, you know, and it's almost like we feel like we're not worthy enough to say that like it's something we can actually make money from or have a business from, just because I didn't have any formal training on it.
Yeah, I bump into that in my world, in not just in tarot, but in all areas of my life, because I am constantly studying, constantly.
Me too.
Um, I am required in order to maintain my personal training certification, I have to go through continuing education.
Yeah.
And anyway, I can go off on a tangent on how, you know, there's this mainstream, it's like the medical profession, you
Mhm.
know, the educational profession
Yeah.
doesn't recognize learning unless it's in some sort of container.
Yeah.
And I am frustrated and I struggle with that because, and as Bethany knows from early childhood education, people learn in so many different ways. And
Exactly.
there's so much knowledge and wisdom that can be gained outside of school walls, outside
Yeah.
of credentialed organizations,
Hmm.
that is not being valued because some arbitrary system
Yeah.
has not accepted it yet.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are the rebels, we are the wild women out there, you know, on the leading edge,
Yes.
you know, making waves and unapologetically saying, this is my truth, this is my wisdom, and I know it to be true because I live it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, this is my life. It's a part of me. And I think that's really important and a good segue into talking about how the tarot is connected to nature, based on the symbolism of the my God, help me out here. The
suits,
symbolism of the
the different suits.
yes, the suits. Thank
Okay.
you. That word just like escaped me. Um, because people forget we are connected to nature, we are connected to
We are
animals.
we are nature.
Yes, we are nature. We literally are made up like, what is it, like 75% or more of our body, or something like 65 is like made up of water, you know, like why do you think we feel so good when we go out and we're around nature? Because we are innately part of it. And I think that sometimes we forget that.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and that's another reason why this is so important to us, because it's not just about the being woke or being awakened, or you know, being, and which is all kind of with our mind, right? Our consciousness is like more mind, but it's also what's happening within our body, which is our nature, you know. Yeah, and things we really literally can't control, you know, like our menstrual cycles and you know, stuff like that. So
Well, and I would say that we can, no, we can't control it, but we can learn to use the natural cycles
yeah.
of our body and of nature and the seasons and even the
Yes.
moon cycle to amplify whatever it is we have going on.
Exactly. I didn't
So,
mean I want us to control it, but I think that we
yeah.
feel like, I think there's this element of feeling at effect of nature, because just
Yes.
like with our bodies, that we can't control the cycles it goes through. Not
Because
that
we
we
don't understand.
right, we just don't understand it. Just like we can't control if there's a rainstorm or, you know, anything like that, or a tornado or a tsunami. That stuff just happens and we cannot control it. And I think that's where also the fear comes in of nature, or like if
Mhm.
like wild animals, like we can't control them. They're instinctual. It's and things just happen because it's needed, right? And we forget that it's needed. There's a purpose. So
Yes.
yeah. Okay, anyway, so you want to talk about, let's talk about your deck and how it's specifically connected
Okay.
with nature, and like the suits in the tarot and what they are represented
Cool.
as.
So I have the Gaian Tarot. It was designed, all the art is by Joanna Pell Colbert, who lives here in the Pacific Northwest. She lives in, well, she lived in Bellingham when I knew her. She has property out on Lummi Island, which is a local tribal reservation, or I should say the tribe owns the island. Anyway,
Cool.
so, and I learned, because I know her and I know the pagan community, so much of her imagery is like even the people in these pictures, I know them.
Mhm. That's
Or, you know,
cool.
somebody has been the inspiration. Maybe it's not an exact, replica of them, and also of the nature in the Pacific Northwest. So this is the back of the card, and I
Ooh.
love it because it incorporates sage, and I believe this is lavender and cedarwood,
Mm.
which if you put those three together, it makes an amazing aromatherapy.
Ooh.
But
It's like the image on the world card, like the, you know,
yeah, yeah.
does she use that image anywhere in the deck?
What
On the
the
back?
this
Yeah.
image?
Mm-hmm.
That's the back image. I don't know about the world, but so real quick, so there are 4 suits. Of course, a regular playing card deck is diamonds, spades, hearts, and clubs.
Yes.
And those all correlate to the tarot deck, which is not necessarily in the same order: pentacles, cups, swords, and wands. Is that right?
Yes.
And so in this deck, the 4 suits are water, fire, earth, and air.
Mm-hmm. And
So
so then so you mentioned, so you could tell us like what?
so water correlates with cups,
Yes.
earth with pentacles, fire with swords. I
Oh
always
yeah,
get these
yours is
mixed up.
different. Yeah.
And wait, no, fire with wands. I did it again.
Oh,
Fire
okay.
with wands and air with swords.
So yours isn't different, or you have another deck that's different? Because because we've talked about this before.
Yeah,
Where okay, I don't know. For some reason, I thought you were saying that like so air is you said swords, right?
yeah,
Anyway, so I just thought we had this conversation where you were saying that to you, air was fire.
yeah, yeah.
I
It no, to me, air
mean,
always.
air. I mean, sorry, swords were fire. That's what I meant.
Yeah, and I used to really relate to swords as fire because
Hmm.
swords, most of the sword imagery is really um, combatant. It's very I don't know. When I think of swords, I think of war. I think of
Yeah.
the opposing forces. Whereas air to me is more inspiration and airy head, and wands to me is representing you use your inspiration to use your wand. And
Yeah.
anyway, so I get easily confused. I'm also left-handed, and I blame that on some of my confusion
That makes
because.
sense.
And then if you want to get even deeper, you've got Earth Pentacles, which relates to North, the spirit of the North.
Yeah.
Spirit of the West is water.
Mhm.
Spirit of the East is air, and Spirit of the South is fire.
Nice.
So you've got all of these interrelational correlations. You also have winter, spring, summer, and fall.
Yep.
I mean, you can find so many repeating patterns in both tarot and numerology.
Hmm.
So every suit has 13 cards. There are 13 moons in a typical lunar year.
Oh my gosh, I never had knew that connection either.
Yeah. And on top of those 52 cards, there's another 22
Yep.
that are the journey of the hero's journey, which is, if you've done any kind of writing research, like writing stories, it is the ultimate story. It's the story of going from being the fool, not knowing anything, being naive, to being fully awoken, fully integrated, and nirvana,
Yeah.
and what's the word I'm trying to think of? Going up into the heavens. So anyway, this deck is gorgeous. I'm just looking for some of my favorite. So here's a great one of just a bunch of people. This is the 6 of air. So for me, this is people in ritual. 6 is the second round. So you've got 1, 2, 3 is one evolution. 4, 5, 6 is another evolution. 7, 8, 9 is the final revolution, and then 10 is a card of completion. So 6 is a completion of like a second round of understanding or wisdom or challenge. And so this card to me represents a celebration, like there's joyous celebration here, but it really lends itself to a little bit more reverence, whereas 3 is more playful. Um, and I love how everybody is celebrating their own way. You've got somebody doing yoga, you've got somebody making music, you have somebody kneeling, somebody standing, and different arm positions. Just everybody is celebrating and acknowledging and giving gratitude in their own way.
Yeah.
So it's also, and again, this is just me intuitively reading this card.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just love the imagery that she has here, and it just speaks to me so much. So funny. I was saying at the beginning of this call, I'm like, I might be ready to move on to another one, and I am, but at the same time, I'm just like,
completely move on. It's just, you're not disowning it.
No, I'm ready to include another deck in my.
You're funny. I love
understanding. So anyway, that is my Gaian Tarot deck. It's beloved. It's getting a little frayed around the edges, but I use it every morning, except for the mornings when I don't feel like it, which happens sometimes. But I mean, for the most part, I'd say maybe 2 days or maybe 3 days a month. I either don't have time, or there's days when I just want to float in all of the magical inspiration that's coming to me.
Yeah. It's actually really hard for me to do readings for myself because I think I'm like, am I just telling myself what I want to hear? Or am I freaking myself out for no reason? You know what I'm saying? It's like kind of one extreme or the other. Like I definitely can teeter-totter when it comes to that. And I have to be in a very balanced place in order to like hear the message and believe it and like trust. It's also my own like trust in myself, but it's easier for me to do it for other people.
I would agree. It's easier and harder. There are times when something will come through on a card that has nothing to do with their question.
Yeah.
And more often than not, I will say, this is really interesting. This makes no sense to me, but it might make sense to you. And then I talk about it. And more often than not, the person, it will have profound meaning to them. And it's the question that was in the back of their mind that they didn't want to ask about, or the thing that they're worrying about that they want to pretend is not a problem.
Yes.
And that's when for me, the magic of the tarot comes through.
Yeah. And absolutely. And what I love about pairing the tarot and the oracle is, so what I do typically is like, I'll start with tarot, and it's like people come to me with specific questions. We answer the questions. And then at the end, like after we feel like we've answered that question, I pull like oracle cards, which is more like guidance to just kind of wrap everything up. And more often than not, like pretty much all the time, it's literally like the same messages that just had come through, kind of like reiterating everything that I said, going a little bit deeper into the messages that already came through. And it's just, to me, it's like, it's always so, it just feels so great that I'm like, okay, they have my back, because like they're literally, these cards came out and it's like, it just fits perfectly together. It's like things just come full circle and it's amazing. So one more thing I think, just to make, we can talk a little bit before we end, is we touched on it a little bit, but we can talk about like the difference between intuitive reading versus traditional reading.
Yeah. So traditional reading, you've got the Rider-Waite deck, and you can do a lot of research about all the symbology on all the cards on that deck. And a lot of those symbols do carry over into other decks. But there was a pretty specific interpretation, I think, at the time when that deck was created, 150, no, 200, I don't know, a long time ago. Like the early 1800s?
Yeah, I believe so. If I have a book right, I could grab and check, but
we'll fact check later.
If you're interested, go look it up.
Exactly. Google will tell you everything.
Yeah, exactly. Google is an oracle, pretty much.
Yeah. But be careful of what you are looking for.
Exactly. You have to use discernment.
So anyway, and I think as humans evolve, as our understanding of the world evolves, I mean, just think about what our culture was like 200 years ago
Yeah,
versus how it is now.
right.
Um, I think understanding of what the messages are have changed, and of course, as people take their own interpretation of a card, you will see different images. So your interpretation will be slightly different.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think what we had talked about earlier with like formal education, it's like I feel like that was more like where it was coming from. It's more like a formal education type thing, you know, where like
Hmm.
the specific, like there's these because there's a bunch of different spreads, like traditional spreads that you can do. I
Yeah,
don't use
like
those. I rarely ever do. People come up with their own spreads too. Sometimes, like on Pinterest, I always save spreads that I think are cool. But you know, so it's like you have these spreads. It's like, okay, I always do reversal. So if this card comes out reversed, or it's like shuffling in a specific manner. So it's like I shuffle this many times, I cut the deck 3 times. You know what I'm saying? So like everyone has a different like ritual when it comes to that. But there is like if you wanted to learn like traditional tarot, I'm sure there is like an actual like courses you can take to learn like, okay, this is how you read it. However, Roxanne and I don't do that.
nope.
We're all about intuitive reading. We may pull from, you know, the traditional kind of structure, but in general, and that's why I have so many decks and why I don't have a Rider Waite is because I absolutely love everyone's ability to interpret in their own way, you know, what is coming out. And also it gives me that freedom. It feels like it gives me, which I need. I need that freedom
Yeah,
to put the story together in my own way, because that's how I work. I don't work, my brain doesn't work in a linear fashion. And so when I pull cards, it's like yes, it will be a story, but like it needs, everything needs to be like interwoven, and like this connects with that, and you know what I'm saying. It's like otherwise
yeah.
I feel too boxed in
You
with
have
the,
like flashbacks. That's what I was
right, I'm
thinking
like
as you're
no.
telling story.
Yeah, then I'm just like, then it just completely cuts off my connection, right? That literally, like, if I feel like I have to do it a certain way, I'm like, nope, sorry, can't tell
Yeah.
me what to do.
Yeah. I do use when I'm doing specific readings, I do have a couple of I have used the traditional Celtic spread, which it uses 10 cards and
Yeah,
it makes a cross, and then it's got cards around it, and then it's got cards up the side.
yeah,
It's very involved, and
yeah,
um it's good for big issues, big questions. I'll
yeah,
sometimes do that when somebody is like, what's the next year hold or something, or they've got a huge project that they're working on. What can they get from that? But
right,
typically what I do is I do a 5 card spread when I'm doing something for like a smaller issue, or like um, what I tend to do for people is, where are you at in life right now?
yeah,
And I take, here are all the elements working in your life
yeah,
on you. So I think it's like an abbreviated Celtic cross. It's
okay,
basically just that center circle.
yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
so I do use that, but for myself and what I do daily, it's usually an oracle card, and then I have either 2 or 3 cards, sometimes just one. Um, and I establish how many cards I'm going to pull pretty quick, like usually as I'm shuffling.
Yeah, you can
And I
feel it.
find that the more confused I am, the fewer cards I pull. Like
Yes,
it actually
absolutely,
helps me. And I'm
totally,
like, wow, this card doesn't really speak to me today, but this is what I've got to work with.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, I agree. That's what we had talked about earlier, is like having, when you have fewer, it's easier. Like if you do feel confused about something, it's like you just want to focus on that one issue. It's like the fewer cards, the better.
yeah.
But yeah, the way that I do it for clients is they come in. I have them have specific questions about what they want to talk about. It makes it easier to narrow in. And then what I notice myself doing, because I kind of create my own structure. I've noticed, you know, like I do have to have some kind of structure. So what I do is when I start pulling cards, like what I'll first do is it's either 3 or 4 at a time. So like the first layer, it's like kind of like layers. So like the first layer of the question we're getting to kind of like, you know, answer is like I'll pull either 3 or 4, and and I'll kind of like see how they play off of each other, go into the story, and then eventually it'll feel like I'm done with that, and then I'll go deeper into what we're talking about, and I'll pull 3 or 4 more. And it's generally like I kind of do that in like, sections, like, and it's generally like 3. So it's like rows. So like 3 or 4, 3 or 4, 3 or 4. And yeah, I've just noticed that I kind of make that up, and it depends on like the person. Also like just what we're talking about and how deep we're getting into what they're talking about. And then at the end, I'll pull like 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how I feel, oracle cards. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
I love getting readings from you, and it flows so smoothly, and I love the way you integrate them with real talk. You're not just saying, and this card says blah blah blah. You'll say, and you were saying something about how you're feeling like the struggle between, you know, these two choices, and oh look, it's you have the 2 of Earth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're
the
juggling
card.
something. No.
I love it.
Thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. I really love doing it. It's fun. And yeah, and so I don't know if I mean, I think we've kind of interwoven what intuitive reading is. It's basically allowing your intuition to guide you to the message, so, and that comes from looking at the picture. So like if I pulled the 7 of Pentacles here, it's like looking at the number 7, what that represents to me, or what that could represent to the person I'm reading for. And then the imagery, to me, this is like, it's very still, like there's a lot of stillness here. She's just kind of relaxing, and that is kind of what 7 of Pentacles is all about. It's about taking a pause, and just waiting, kind of waiting for your fruits to for your tree to bear fruits.
As I can see in the tree.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, it's about, and you can go as deep or as not that you want. It's like you can look at the colors, you can look at like, I'm trying to find
What
a,
direction she's
yeah,
facing.
right, to what direct, like sometimes that happens to me, like, so say like I pulled a couple cards, and it's like people in it are facing away from each other or facing towards each other, like, it's like looking at how, like I said, the cards are playing off of each other as well. And you're right, it's there's so much, like, this is why I think, spoiler alert, I think I'm gonna start teaching intuitive tarot, because I think that you can get so deep into it, and there's so many different layers, and it's too much to go into right now. So
I know. We could talk for hours more about how we read and all the cards
I
and
know,
yeah.
yes,
So
and
maybe we'll maybe do another tarot, a tarot talk.
yeah, and maybe we can like pull cards for each other, or for the audience as we're, and just see if that would be fun.
Facebook Live tarot
Yes,
reading.
or you can
Okay.
do YouTube lives too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Be on the lookout.
Yes, maybe next month if we get a lot of, depending on if people respond to this one, we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Woke Wild Women.
Yeah. I love that. Yep. Yeah, because just, to let you guys know, we plan to do just Roxanne and I once per month, talking about the topics that are, important to us, or that are showing up in our lives, in addition to interviewing our closest friends and our new friends, and building that community. So thank you guys
Yeah.
so much for tuning in. Today was super
Thank
fun.
you. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Take
Okay.
care, and we'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.